Hello there. I recently passed by the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature and had a very impromptu conversation with British comedian Joly. Most of us know him from his TV show Trigger Happy TV, and we spoke a little bit about a new season he's working on right now, as well as his podcast and his passion for travel. If you didn't know, Joly is a successful travel writer, and he actually hails originally from Lebanon, so we spoke a lot about his origin from Lebanon and his time in the UK and really what he's got coming up. He's quite a passionate guy and shares his views on Top Gear and other well-known people, shall we say. The audio in places is not the best, so I've added some subtitles. Do give me some feedback and let me know what you think. Enjoy.
And I said those things mainly, I believe them totally, is that I'm a sort of Middle Eastern snob in the sense that I grew up in Lebanon, and I thought of Dubai as the Middle East, really. And I don't think I should look at it as like that, because in a way it's like a sort of international free zone. It's not. It's sort of like Hong Kong isn't China. Once I stopped looking at it as I'm going to the Middle East, I'm totally cool with it. But to me, it's like Middle East is like Lebanon and stuff like that. And compared to Lebanon, it's not, because it's a very odd place. It's very transient. It's full of people moving, and it's full of Brits. And I go, that's not where I come to the Middle East for.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously there are pockets of so many different demographics, and there are tens of thousands of Lebanese people.
Yeah, but that I don't understand. If I lived in Lebanon, to come here, what? Lebanon's so beautiful, but then the media opportunities here are so much better, job-wise and stuff, than Lebanon. And also less people shooting at each other, which is one of the hugely positive things about Dubai, is that, it's relatively safe compared to anywhere else. So I get all that.
There is that. And we'll come back to Dubai, because you've already mentioned Lebanon, and I wanted to bring it back there and talk about your life as a travel writer now. And do you think being born as a kind of, within a British context overseas, do you think that kind of affected the way that you saw the world when you travelled, and that kind of sparked that interest initially?
Tintin is what it's all about to me. I grew up in Lebanon, and I grew up with quite adventurous parents in the sense that, my dad was a sort of amateur archaeologist. It wasn't his job, but so we used to, at least twice a year, we'd drive into Syria, and we'd roam all over Palmyra and Deir ez-Zor and everywhere, and that was like adventures. So as a kid, that was amazing anyway. Lebanon itself was exotic enough, because I'd go from Lebanon to boarding school in England, so both places I was kind of slightly floating above, because in Lebanon I was this English kid, and in England I was this kid that lived in Lebanon, so I never kind of belonged anywhere. So I think I always looked at things from slight distance, and then we used to drive from Lebanon to England once a year. So travel was like huge, and my mum would always say horrible things like, we're not tourists, we're travellers. So I always had a loathing of kind of tourism. I'm a travel snob. For me, travelling is about going somewhere and being quite challenged and finding yourself a bit uncomfortable and immersing yourself in local stuff. So that's why I've said publicly, I hate EasyJet, I hate Ryanair. I just don't think people should be allowed to travel unless they're properly travelling, and that's why I like travelling to places. It's almost impossible to go anywhere now where you're not 100 metres from a Starbucks, and it's like, that's not travelling anymore. I want to go somewhere different. So I love it when I go somewhere and I feel out of place, I feel slightly uncomfortable, because that's what travel to me is about.
So that you vehemently agree with your mother on that distinction?
Yeah, I do, but I'm a tourist as well, because I'm not a tourist actually, because I'm a very bad tourist. I think you can be a tourist as long as you travel on your own. I hate people that travel in groups. I hate unimaginative stuff. I hate the fact that, especially as Brits, you go to places and literally, the locals know that they say things like English breakfast served here, and you're like, really? Why? If you want an English breakfast, stay at home. Sure. So I'm a snob in that. I hate it.
I had no idea you'd road trip between Beirut and the UK.
I've done that. More than once. I've done that 20 times, I think. And actually, I do that with my own kids now. So every Easter, in fact, I'm supposed to be on my annual road trip now. We drove from the Cotswolds to Istanbul and back 2 years ago, which my kids hated because they're young. But then I think, but I did all this, and I was thinking maybe I hated it, and now all I remember is the good parts, And then we were supposed to go all the way down to the Sahara, but my wife's American and got a bit nervous about ISIS, even though I insisted they weren't in the Sahara. So we went round the Iberian Peninsula, which is a Ponzi way of saying Spain and Portugal. But actually, that was really good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I actually did London to Istanbul.
Oh, did you?
It felt like it was mostly Germany.
Well,
which is not necessarily.
Well, you can do it a lot of different ways. What really interests me, actually, the boring bit is the Germany, Prague, whatever. But once you get past Hungary, then I was really interested, because I'd never done the Balkans, and that really interests me. And so I went one way. I went through Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia. And then on the way back, we came up through Croatia, and I went to my new favourite country, which is Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I kind of forget that that's where Turks almost got to the gates of Vienna, and it really is where the Middle East meets Europe. And you have this crazy mix of mosques, and so, for instance, Sarajevo reminded me a bit of Beirut. It's kind of got a bit of danger to it, and it's got this crazy Christian-Muslim mix where people get on, and yet they fought each other. I love Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Which is, I guess, Dubai as well, and Beirut as well. I mean, there's that mix there. I mean, is there a parallel?
Well, I have a real problem with Beirut in the sense that when people go to Lebanon now, I think they go, oh, we go to Beirut and we loved it. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going there because you've heard the word Beirut all your life, and you think, oh, it's dangerous. And I think, unfortunately, I think it's brilliant that Beirut's been rebuilt and that they've put investment in it, but I think they've actually made quite a dull city. They've made it like any other. Beirut used to be a beautiful mix of people and cultures and architecture, and actually it's a bit like a Disney town to me now. It's sort of not a real town, and it's people kind of go there and go, oh, we're clubbing in Beirut, whereas to me Lebanon is about getting out of Beirut and going to Baalbek and going up into the hills, and that's where I love. Dubai is different because what I love about Dubai is the ambition of it. I mean, there's some amazing photo I saw of the skyline in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, the growth in this place is insane. And from going from somewhere so small with not much natural resources to what it is, I mean, the ambition is unbelievable. But it's frightening as well. It's like, it needs a city planner occasionally.
Yeah, you were preempting my question about kind of what advice you give to people who are going to Lebanon. You mentioned kind of if you...
Well, get out of Beirut as quickly as possible. Go skiing. I mean, the problem with Lebanon is, what I loved about Lebanon is the beauty of it, and one of the problems, many problems, I mean, it's a tiny problem compared to people being killed in the war, is the fact that planning has gone. So the coast is ruined. I mean, even when you approach Lebanon from the sea, for 3 miles out, it's just plastic bags and it's rubbish, and the coast is just hideous. So I'd ignore the coast, apart from Tyre, which is incredible in the south, and it's a bit dodgy, but it's great. But I'd go up into the mountains. I mean, I'm biased because I grew up in there, but the Christian mountains, Baalbek, Brumana and Beit Mary, absolutely amazing. And then you go up to Freya and you drive past Roman ruins and go skiing, and then you go into the Bekaa Valley and there's Baalbek. I mean, it's an amazing country. Yeah. It's incredible, and for such a small country. And what I want to do, I'm trying to do at the end of this year, there's a thing called the Lebanon Mountain Trail, where you can walk in a month from the very tip of the Syrian border all the way across the spine of Lebanon to the south. I really want to do that.
It's funny, I was listening to a podcast you did, I think it was Radio 4, the Inheritance Tracks.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of joked about there being this kind of big push to get people there doing hiking and stuff. Yeah. Perhaps not the best time. No. But it seems like, people are up for it, I think, when they know outside of the city, and, it's not the best time, but I think there will be.
But you see, that is so weird for me, because for me, this is the best time, and that's why I'm an odd traveller. To me, if a bomb goes off somewhere, I kind of think, well, I'm going to go there now, because everyone's going to bugger off. And I know that's a horrible way of looking at stuff, but I think people are just bored of, I mean, the fact that there's less and less real travel anyway, because everywhere you go there's a Starbucks. On top of that, there's sort of spoon-fed stuff, and actually people want a bit of not adventure, but they want to go somewhere where they really experience something, and that's what my book The Dark Tourist was about, is it's very rare to, unfortunately, the places that offer that tend to be because they're either under a very repressive government or because they've got some sort of conflict going on. So as long as you can take that into your factoring of your holiday, that's fine. And I grew up in Beirut, so I find going somewhere that's a war zone, I don't automatically think I'm going to be shot at, because Beirut, you just lived a normal existence while that was going on.
It doesn't really faze the Lebanese.
No, it never fazed them. I mean, I remember there were stories of people, water skiing while they were shooting 2 streets away, and if it came 1 street nearer, then they'd stop water skiing, but that's about as far as it got.
Dark Tourist, what is a Dark Tourist exactly, for those of us who've not read?
Well, I read this book ages ago called Holidays in Hell. It's one of my favourite books ever, by P.J. O'Rourke, who had the best job ever. He was the foreign correspondent for Rolling Stone, and he used to just go off on trips. And he wrote this book in the 80s, and he went on to places you wouldn't normally go on holiday. So at the time he went to Lebanon, he went to El Salvador, he went to a riot in Korea, and he just said, let's just go and see what's happening in these places. And I remember reading that book and thinking, I'd never read anyone that had got Lebanon as much, even though he didn't know anything about it. But it was just amazing. And so I knew that I wanted to go to these sort of places. I wanted to go to North Korea, I wanted to go, and I didn't know what to call it really. I wanted to call it Holidays in Hell, but I couldn't. And then someone sent me a clipping from The Guardian, and it was about Guyana, which is probably the world's most inhospitable country. It's in South America. I actually rang the tourism minister of Guyana, and he actually recommended I didn't visit. He said it's a horrible country, snakes and swamps. When the tourism minister doesn't do it, he was then fired, and a new tourism minister came in who tried to get tourism into Guyana, and he did it by, there was a guy called Jim Jones who set up a cult there. They escaped, and there were 800 people, and they all committed suicide, and it's called the Jonestown Massacre.
It's a great Netflix.
Amazing documentary on it. So that place that they built, Jonestown, is in the middle of the Guyana jungle. So this tourism minister, desperate to think of what would bring people to Guyana, thought about reopening that place as a hotel. So the Guardian said this is a classic example of this new movement of dark tourism. And they were saying that, like, why would anyone want to go? And I remember reading it thinking, I'd really quite like to go to that. Yeah. So, and that's what I realised what it was called. So I really like the name, the Dark Tourist. But dark tourism itself normally is a bit more macabre. It's a bit people that like going to Auschwitz and they're kind of like scenes of death. For me, it isn't. Yeah, Chernobyl. That's where I went in Dark Tourist. For me, it's more about, I was trying to work out why I wanted to go to these places. Why did I want to go to Dallas and stand in what is just a busy street? Because there's an X on the spot where this thing happened to Kennedy. And I still can't quite describe it, but I think it's because I'm such a politics anorak and I love history. And I remember growing up with these things, not Kennedy. And I think it's a way of touching history. I can't quite explain it, but when I went to Cambodia, I mean, I ended up in a war crimes tribunal, and that I actually looked in the eyes of someone through glass who'd murdered, hundreds of thousands of people. And that's a horrible thing, but it was an extraordinary thing to be able to do. And I think I just understand a thing better, and you can almost feel stuff that's happened. I don't know, it's maybe because I'm a history buff. It's why people like going to sites of old battles. I don't like doing that. I have no interest in that. Yeah. But a lot of people do.
As a travel writer, then you obviously have a way with words and you're very eloquent. But as a medium, do you struggle with putting pen to paper and actually figuring out how you convey these things versus a visual?
No, I hate visual. I mean, visual's dull and it's very easy and you have to cheat and you can't. I mean, most travel shows, that's what I hate about travel shows. Television's supposed to be transparent now and trustworthy and everything, but travel shows are the last great lie. I mean, you watch Michael Palin, who I love, but frankly, really dull. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not how I want to travel around the world. But he's a lovely man, and there's this great thing where he goes, I have to be at Alexandria at 8:30, otherwise I'm going to miss the train that misses my connection. So this false pretense is set up, and then he gets to Alexandria, gets on the train, and then there's a beautiful shot of the train leaving, and you're like, well, who the fuck took that then? So all the travel stuff, and then you meet the fixer. You don't meet them in the hotel and the producer says, here's the fixer. No, you bump into them in the inset market. It's like, so all that crap is like, we all know that that's bollocks. So what I like doing when I write is just being truthful about it and saying, and also there's a slight feeling that, everywhere mystical is amazing and poor places are like really beautiful. It's like, some places smell of shit and I'm going to write about that and it's horrible. So I think I'm really truthful. But I think the difference is I really love travel. And I'm happy to say I hate travel sometimes. It's awful. Sometimes it's really boring and it's shit and it smells and I hate the place. But I love anywhere new. I get such a buzz. Stepping off a plane or a train in a new country is the most exciting thing in the world, even Dubai. It's a different level. Firstly, Top Gear have more money and more production values than most films, so you get an amazing film. Secondly, you're getting actually lads on holiday with that. So you've got the motoring aspect, which is completely irrelevant, and then they go and do the big stereotype the one they did in Vietnam, for instance. I don't watch Top Gear, I fucking loathe it. I think they're smug cunts, but I loved the one in Vietnam. I thought it was absolutely amazing. And it did show Vietnam beautifully, and it was funny, and it was sort of slightly politically incorrect. I'd prefer their take on it, even with his sort of casual racist asides and sort of easy stereotyping. At least they're sort of being honest, rather than this sort of mythical travel making where everyone's like, oh, it's so beautiful, and everyone's so... It's like bollocks, like sometimes this is crap. I don't like the smell of it, so... I don't know, I'd just like it to be real, really.
Yeah, are we still going to see you on TV or online, preferably? Or are you
Not preferably, I don't want to be online. Who wants to be online? I want to be on telly where everyone watches it at the same time. I know online is supposed to be the future, but until everyone watches stuff online at the same time, it doesn't have that same effect. I'm just about to do, I can't say it, but I'm about to start a new Trigger Happy on Monday, and it's going to be very funny. I've just done a huge travel series for Audible.com. We've been bought by Amazon, and they I think they've realised with the onset of they didn't do Serial, but Serial was this huge podcast, and I think they suddenly realised there's this huge open area of no original content in audio. So their idea is Amazon wants to be the sort of Netflix of audio, and they don't have any content. So I think I was the first thing they commissioned, and they sent me off to America, which would not have been my first choice because America's so obvious, but it's also brilliant. And to do a show called Dom Joly's Big American Vacation, and honestly, it was the best thing I ever did. I illegally crossed the Mexican border. I wrestled alligators. I did a dope tour of Denver. I mean, it was crazy, and I think it's going to be good, but it's all audio, so I haven't done that before, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge podcast junkie.
Well, I love podcasts.
Yeah, I found the Inheritance tracks because I was just searching.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, this guy must have a podcast, but obviously it sounds like you will very soon.
Well, I've never had one because I've always steered away from that because I've always thought visuals much better. But having now done quite a lot of TV travel stuff, I don't like it because you have to make all those jumps and cheats. Whereas what I love about podcasts is it gives you the space to do it, but also like it's me and a producer, and I was wearing these headphones that are microphones, so they're 3D microphones, so you can tell where people are, and no one knows you're recording, so you just get much more real experience. Having said that, I haven't heard the show yet, I haven't edited it properly, it might be awful, but I think it's going to be really good. And if that's the case, it's a bit like me saying, oh yeah, I don't like playing those huge barns anymore, I want to play tiny places, but I love the freedom of a podcast, and I'm obsessed with podcasts.
Do you have to find a producer that you really trust, or is it...
This was a nightmare. No, this was a nightmare, because I normally produce my own stuff, but I know nothing about radio, and I knew I needed someone to be the grown-up. And so I told my wife, I'm off, it's amazing, Audible are paying for me to go for 4 weeks driving around America. And she goes, who with? I go, a producer. She goes, is it a woman? I go, I've no idea. And then, of course, we meet the producer. She's a 6-foot woman. And I'm like, oh no, like that. But I can't say no, you know, so that was quite awkward. And I'd never met her before. So that's part of the podcast, is literally the first moment of the podcast is her explaining to me how the tape machine works. So it's almost like how to make a podcast. Sure. And actually part of it, I need a foil. Part of it is me and her not really getting on very well and bickering in the car, which is what travelling's about, again, like the road trip.
But it comes back to that honesty that you say.
But that's what I like. Rather than pretending that I found something, I just honestly say, well, I didn't want to do this, but the producer told me to go and do that. And I think that's much more intelligent way of dealing with travel, because everyone knows how travel journalism works, and you also know how you find things, and I think that's more interesting than pretending you came across it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of almost touches on that with, I don't know if you watch any of the Karl Pilkington stuff.
You see, that fucking irritates me, because I know what they were doing with that. I love Karl. I think he's brilliant. I mean, he's a very strange man, but I think he's very funny. But what I fucking hate about that is, A, I did that way before him in Happy Hour, where I was sort of spoofing travel shows, but that's sort of promoting that negative thing that, oh, I'm an idiot and isn't foreign terrible. It's like, well, okay, that's a bit what Clarkson does, and we get that, but it's not. Like, travelling's amazing, and there's got to be a way of doing a really interesting show which actually makes you want to travel rather than going, oh, it's all shit. Although the honesty of that, I like. The flip side, you know, poverty, but it's a bit one-trick pony, that.
So are we allowed to talk about Trigger? You just said you're going to film it?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm not supposed to talk about it, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, is it more of the same? I mean, you kind of...
No, I never wanted to bring it back, because basically I stopped it when it was at the top and I wanted to leave it like that. And as I was saying earlier to Rachel, I can only ever think of one example in all of show business of someone having something big, going away, and then came back saying bigger, and that's take that. And really, I don't want to do that. But they did do it. And I really didn't want to do it for ages. But I think part of me is, I'm kind of sick of people telling me, oh, aren't you annoyed that you missed out on YouTube? And I'm like, no, like, I was before YouTube, and everyone watched it at the same time, and I sold it to 97 countries, so I didn't miss anything on that. What I'm annoyed about is watching most of YouTube, and it doesn't make me laugh. I mean, pranking is huge on YouTube, and I think 1% makes me laugh. Most of it is just idiots. So I kind of think I've got some really good ideas, and I'm going to come back with them. Secondly, it's got to be all new stuff, which it is. The only thing that's coming back is the phone. I hate the phone. It's like the thing that if you didn't watch Trigger Happy, you know the phone. And actually, it was only a thing to interrupt things. But phones have changed so much. Now I've got a huge iPhone, I've got a Siri when I'm sitting in a pub, it goes, the gentleman next to you has expressed a sexual interest in you, you know. There's so much you can do with it. Yeah. So I think it'd be great. I've got a great new soundtrack, I've got amazing new ideas, I've got a huge vape that just smokes everywhere, and it goes, no, it's just a vape. I've got one of those cycle, you know those people that film themselves in cycle lanes shouting at cabs. I've got a militant cyclist shouting people get out of the cycle lane even though they're not in it. There's loads of good stuff. I'm so excited about it. I shouldn't talk about it, but it is. I know, but I can't. But yeah, I'm very excited about it.
So that's going to exist on YouTube?
No, that's going to be on Channel 4.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, but actually, it's going to be on Channel 4's online first. It's Channel 4's way of trying to draw people into their online thing.
Okay, and what's left on the agenda in Dubai? Have you got a bit of spare time?
Well, I'm doing this talk tomorrow. I mean, basically they invited me to talk about my book, and then thought, God, we've got to ask him to do something else. They had no idea where I'd fit in, Mr. Squirrel Man, so they've put me on a thing called What to Do in a Post-Career World, i.e. he doesn't know what he does. I don't know what I'm talking about tomorrow. And then I'm doing my book, I'm playing a bit of golf, I'm going to find a decent Lebanese restaurant, because Rachel's going to tell me. Because all I want to do is eat Lebanese food, really, because I miss it so much. I mean, there are good ones in London, but I just love it.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Well, it sounds like you've been here a few times, so you've ticked off a few boxes already.
Well, I've done all the cliche things, but this, honestly, is not my sort of place to go on holiday, but nor is Marbella, or nor is Vegas. I mean, I like going to odd places, but I'm here with my wife, who's never been here before. And I said, oh, you'll actually really like it, because let's just come and chill out in the sun. Day one, torrential rain. She's like, what is this place? But she's very happy up at the pool.
There are some particularly quirky spots you should check out.
Like what? Tell me.
North Korean restaurant in Old Dubai, which is actually a state-sanctioned restaurant. It's their equivalent of an embassy.
But there's one in London as well.
Yeah, it will be the same.
That's amazing.
An accordion playing.
And it's so awful, their food. Yeah. Do they have dog there? I had dog in North Korea. They call it sweetmeat. Of course, yeah. And where else then?
There is
I've been to a very weird place called the York Club, but we shouldn't talk about that. York Hotel. That was like the bar in Star Wars. Someone took me there. It was insane. It is. It's crazy. It was awful, but it was sort of. I would like. How does this exist here?
Yeah.
That was crazy. Where else should I go?
There's a Nepalese bar called Yak and Yeti, which is in a.
I stayed in the Yak and Yeti in Kathmandu. It's a very famous hotel.
Well, it probably resembles about 10% of that.
Yeah.
It's pretty kitsch. That kind of thing, you know.
You see, I don't find those.
You can just walk those streets, particularly.
But where are you talking about? Indira or?
This is Dubai, so it's near the creek, just on
the other
creek, so
on the other side of the creek.
It's the new Dubai side.
Where there's a little mini souk, but it's terrible.
There's a few of those.
Yeah, so not on the gold souk side, on the other side.
No, we're on the gold souk.
Yeah, we're on the gold souk side now. So on the other side. Oh, see, I haven't looked around there.
Yak and Yeti, North Korean restaurant. They would be the two kind of. They provide some anecdotes.
Oh, I'd love that. I tell you what I really want to write about, but I don't know if I can. It's the world. You know that whole story about it, the world and
Lebanon Island is the only one that's open.
Yeah, and something dodgy's going on there, as far as I know.
Okay.
An Ireland guy bought Ireland, then committed suicide after he bankrupted, and all those stories about people buying. I love that whole story. It's so Dubai. It's brilliant. But basically, my dad told me when I was a kid, you know, if you ever leave your job once, you might get away with it, but after that, you'll never work again. Now, the only people that employ are people that can jump around and do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, so was the serious stuff before the teddy bear party?
Yeah, way before that. I was a diplomat in Prague for 9 months, and then I was a producer at ITN. I had a pass that has the Commons every day for 2 years. I worked for the New Statesman, and then I got fired from ITN, and that's when I ended up working for Mark Thomas Comedy Product, which is like a Michael Moore show.
Yeah. And
suddenly I thought, oh my God, they paid me to drive tank through a McDonald's drive-through, and I thought, I can't believe that this is happening.
Have you missed any of the serious stuff?
No, not at all. No, because I do it, but with fun, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for that.